Well, guys, it looks like we are still in a race. It's a race where Cardano and all of crypto are pushing from the outside edges in on the legacy financial and monetary systems. Meanwhile, certain actors, certain forward thinking actors inside the legacy systems are trying to co opt some of the elements of what we on the outside would call crypto, sort of turn it into this corrupted thing that doesn't really look like crypto, but you could sort of trick people into believing is crypto, and then sell that to the masses and let that become the new crypto. Obviously, that's not what we want on the outside, but hey, they're the ones on the inside of the fortress looking out at us. And it's very unclear who wins this race. If you could tell that the people standing in the street in the thumbnail were in the Cardano hypocycloid logo symbol formation, or if you're finding value in these videos, please consider delegating to the army of spies. Stake pool, ticker AOS. Okay, what do I mean when I say that Cardano and crypto are pushing in from the edges on the legacy financial and monetary systems? It all goes back to what people, I think, at least what I was thinking back a decade ago when I first got into crypto. And I think a lot of other people were kind of thinking the same thing. Crypto was really small. Like we talk about how niche and small crypto is now, but crypto was really small back in 2013. And there was a lot more talk about crypto as money. We didn't have programmability on the scale that we have it now. We didn't have scaling on the scale that we have it now. But we did have crypto, and we did have crypto as money. And there was a lot of talk about the mainstream acceptance of crypto as money. And we sort of always envisioned it happening, you know, on a very wide global scale and on a very unrealistic timeline. Like I think we all, very readily would have accepted that this would have happened by, the year 2020. Obviously, that didn't really happen. But what we did imagine was that crypto would be adopted sort of, in the same way that we had adopted it. The people who were in crypto at that time, we were sort of on the fringes. We were like these out of the box thinkers, these forward looking, early adopters of this thing. Very, very early, given that crypto is still, much more widely known now, but it's certainly not adopted on any kind of global scale now. But we sort of imagined that the adoption of crypto would look kind of like this post, that the adoption of crypto would continue to be this thing where crypto is like this insurgency, like the rebels in the mountains coming down into the valley, with strategic strikes. The adoption would happen by, strategic strikes, insurgency, the rebels coming down to the mountains kind of thing. And here we do see a little bit of that, and it's certainly happening on the edges, at least in terms of, a global nation state perspective. What I mean by that is that this post is about something that's happening in El Salvador. It says McDonald's accepts Bitcoin. Soon they will turn this on in every country to avoid the 2.5% transaction fee Visa and MasterCard charge. That's not something I'm representing to you. That's just something that this person is writing. Kids are born online today, and a digital currency is native to them, and trust in governments has never been lower. The future is clear. So I believe we're to understand that this is happening in El Salvador, and this is kids ordering Happy Meals in McDonald's using crypto. And of course, we already know the story in El Salvador. This is going to be Bitcoin, and it's going to be the Lightning Network. We don't need to get into, the various debates and controversies about Bitcoin in general and the Lightning Network. But I think the important thing here is that you have a country that is sort of on the outside, looking in terms of the international monetary system. The international monetary institutions we've covered on this channel are certainly not in favor of El Salvador adopting any kind of crypto standard, definitely not on the scale it has. And it was sort of a slow start. We got all kinds of reports. Everybody was very excited after the initial announcement. And then we got all kinds of reports that nobody in El Salvador was actually using crypto, that it wasn't a practical thing. But here we see little kids at McDonald's ordering Happy Meals. I assume. I didn't actually see what they ordered, but I'm guessing it was a Happy Meal. Ordering Happy Meals and paying for it in Bitcoin. I think this is always how adoption was going to happen. It was always going to be, the youngest, most tech-friendly generation that was going to be the generation that adopted crypto on a wide mainstream scale. And they were going to use it for practical things. I think first it was always going to be practical things. It wasn't going to be some kind of like hyper technical DEX trading that, led to the mainstream adoption. It's too complicated. It had to be something simple that made sense. And here we see that. We see a nation state that in terms of the International Monetary Order is kind of on the fringes looking in. They're doing something very outside the box. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as something I admire, that Bukele was willing to move outside of what the global monetary order, wanted El Salvador to do. And he found something that, maybe is better for El Salvador. They're on the outside, pushing in from the edges. I think this is how the adoption of crypto was always going to look. Sure, we always hoped for, that big mainstream thing. We always hoped that big mainstream thing would happen, Amazon would adopt Cardano. Amazon would adopt ADA, as an operative, currency, the currency of Amazon, something gigantic like that. We always hoped there'd be this like one fell swoop that would result in all of this adoption. That hasn't happened yet. What has happened has been the same thing that has always happened. Crypto has always been the rebels in the mountains, executing little tiny surgical strategic strikes coming down from the mountains into the valley, achieving a little bit of adoption here, a little bit there. Maybe that's how it always goes with crypto. Maybe it all just happens piecemeal, slowly, slowly, slowly. But with this new generation, maybe this is where that picks up. Maybe that adoption picks up more with this younger generation. And slowly, gradually, we see the kind of mainstream adoption we've always hoped for. Of course, you'll remember that I said this was a race. So what is on the other side? Who are we racing against? It's a lot of this. Here we see this headline. Just in 1.34 trillion euro asset manager Deutsche Bank to offer Bitcoin and crypto custody services. The thing we've always known all along, and we kind of, some of us in crypto would talk sort of longingly about this happening, and others of us feared this, certainly. It's that crypto should be very, very attractive to the legacy financial system players, all of the big banks. Crypto should be extremely attractive. And now we're finally hearing and seeing that the herd is sort of migrating wholesale into crypto, because there are a lot of things they can do in crypto that they just can't do in the legacy system. And here we see sort of like the, dipping their toe into the waters kind of approach. It's custody where we often see this. They decide, hey, we can hold on to everybody's crypto and do all kinds of things with it. Kind of the traditional banking model. We'll keep a hold of your assets and we'll do all kinds of stuff with your assets in the meantime, do the whole fractional reserve banking thing. And, we'll return your assets unless we fail. But don't worry about that. Just give us your assets and we'll do all kinds of things to make money for ourselves with your assets in the meantime. But you know what the legacy financial system likes even better than that? They like the idea of taking your fiat and giving you money they printed. That sounds great. And they can kind of do that under the guise of it being crypto. I think they looked at what a lot of people were doing in crypto and they thought, wait a second, we've never been allowed to print money before. Are these guys printing money? Are they printing money? Because we want to print money. If anybody's printing money, it's going to be us. We want to be the ones doing that. And they've kind of figured out a way to do that. So this article says, Citi debuts deposit and trade services on blockchains for institutional clients. You might see this headline and think, that's wonderful. Citigroup is getting involved in blockchain technology. They're allowing for the deposit and trading and provision of trading services on blockchains. That sounds wonderful. But then you get to the very bottom of the article and you realize what's really going on here. The article says Citi is using a private blockchain for its new services. Whether Citi or a company like it will ever have use for public blockchains in the future will depend on how regulations play out. So they're not doing what you would hope if you read this title. You would think like, oh, this is great. What are they using? Are they using, Cardano blockchain? Is it Ethereum? Is it, Algorand? Is it Avalanche? Like, what blockchain is this? No, it's their own private stuff. And of course, it's a private blockchain. And so, of course, they control the tokens on that blockchain. So it's great for them. You can give them, if you're an institutional client, you can give them your fiat and they're going to sell this idea to you based on convenience. They say if you're a large multinational client where you have multiple bank accounts in multiple different regions across borders and you keep buffers of cash in each of these regions, it's really an efficient use of cash. If it's 5 p.m. in the US and 5 a.m. in Singapore, but you need to get money there, you can send that immediately within seconds. And that certainly is one of the benefits of blockchain technology. But what they're not telling you is that you could be using a public blockchain where you would have assets that are actually marketable on open markets. You could take your ADA, say, and sell that at any point, from pretty much anywhere in the world. But if you're using Citigroup's private blockchain, no, that is not a marketable asset. Not as marketable on as many open markets as, there might end up being markets for whatever token. I'm sure there'll be Citigroup controlled markets maybe for whatever tokens they're using. Probably not. Probably they'll just allow you to, exchange it for fiat or something. But they could create, some kind of market for their tokens or something, for who knows. But this is not a public blockchain. This is a bank doing what they probably wanted to do for, how long's it been since they haven't been able to print their own money? 150 years, 170 years or something. Banks haven't been able to print their own money. That was the era of like wildcat banking when they could do that a long time ago, basically in the Wild West. The literal Wild West, not the Wild West that the U.S. regulators like to pretend crypto is now. They haven't been able to do this for a long time, but now they can under the guise of being crypto. They can take your fiat, give you the money they print that they're calling tokens, run it on their private blockchain. And by private, whenever I see private blockchain, I pretty much just substitute database, run it on their database. And then they're like, oh, you need your money in Singapore? Let us use our blockchain. And then it's just some dude doing the same thing they do now, move some numbers around in a database. Sure, you've got the whole, Fed clearing thing they've got to deal with now in fiat, but they're even taking that piece out. Now it's truly just a Citigroup database, and some dude's going to move some numbers around. He's like, oh, I've sent your money to Singapore across the blockchain. Meanwhile, it's literally just a server somewhere that Citigroup's running. This is the crypto we don't want to become crypto. This is what we don't want crypto to become. We don't want it to become a bunch of servers that a bunch of legacy financial players are calling blockchains. This is not blockchain technology. I'm sure they're borrowing a bunch of different facets of blockchain technology, but they're definitely not borrowing the most important piece. Maybe the two most important pieces, decentralization and permissionlessness. They're not borrowing those pieces because all they want to do is be able to take fiat and give you their fake printed money, their tokens, their Citi tokens or whatever they call them, and just run this whole thing on a server. Just make it a database. That's what they really want to do. That's not really crypto. And this is the race we're in. We don't want this to become crypto. We want public, decentralized, permissionless blockchains to always be crypto. You know what is one of the worst things in crypto? Actually, one of the worst things in life, really. But one of the worst things in crypto is when we think we have an ally, when we think there are some good guys, and it turns out they're just going to stab us in the back. Here we see that. Here's a post that says, CFTC enforcement director calls DeFi exchanges obvious threat. This is not what we're used to seeing. We've seen the CFTC do some things that we didn't like in crypto, certainly. But this kind of rhetoric we're used to seeing out of Uncle Gary Gensler over at the SEC. He's not my uncle. Maybe he's your uncle, but he definitely thinks he's crypto's uncle, telling crypto what's best for it. So But I've sort of been waiting for US federal regulators to go after DeFi. And I think they've sort of been, and they've gone after DeFi, platforms in the past. They haven't like left it untouched, but we haven't seen sort of the widespread, sort of like systemic DeFi is against the rules. We're going to obliterate DeFi. And I think maybe part of the reason we haven't seen that is because things haven't been going very well for the SEC in crypto. They've lost some big decisions. Not whole cases. Whole cases haven't been disposed of in favor of crypto necessarily, but there have been some key decisions that haven't gone the SEC's way. And they've gotten a lot of heat from Congress. Our allies in Congress, we do have some allies in Congress who haven't stabbed us in the back. And they've come out very, very strongly against the way Gary Gensler's SEC has been handling crypto. The CFTC, not so much. We haven't seen this kind of stuff out of the CFTC, but now all of a sudden we see CFTC enforcement director calling DeFi exchanges an obvious threat. And we've already seen this kind of language from the SEC about crypto, and certain members of Congress, the Dragon and others. And, they have all kinds of talking points and they're always the same about how it's a threat, to the strength of the dollar as the world reserve currency, all those kinds of things. We haven't seen the CFTC come out so strongly like this. They were sort of just like this neutral, I don't even want to say neutral, but inoffensive. They were sort of like this inoffensive regulator. We were sort of hoping that the regulation of crypto would land under, because they weren't as bad as the SEC. But now we see them adopting the exact same rhetoric as the SEC. This could be a little bit. This could be this might be a little foreboding. This might end up. This might end up being an indication of things to come. It's not all bad news, though. We're seeing some very crypto positive headlines out of certain publications like Forbes Digital Assets. Granted, this is Forbes Digital Assets, so they're all about crypto anyway, but this is a pretty positive headline. Mind-bogglingly massive. Crypto suddenly braced for a Fed shock that could actually pump the price of Bitcoin, Ethereum, BNB, and XRP. So this was clear back on September 18th, and I'm not so much thinking about the, forecasting potential of this headline, just the fact that Forbes Digital Assets is thinking so positively about crypto that they're putting words like this together in a headline about crypto. Mind-bogglingly massive. It's like they're trying to shill crypto. It's like they're trying to pump crypto. A mind-bogglingly massive pump. Those are words in that title. Not necessarily together, but those are all words in the title of this article. This is a little bit of a shift. I think what we've got going on right now is we've got certain journalists who at least cover crypto, maybe not even dedicated to crypto, but they cover crypto. And they've finally gone through a full cycle along with us. It was always in past cycles, it was always sort of like we always had our own crypto, sort of journalists. But now what we're seeing is real mainstream publications like Forbes. They have people on staff or contributing at least to their publications who really went through a full cycle with us. And now, of course, we're in crypto winter. We're in the bear market. We're in the bad part, but they're in there with us because somehow over the course of this cycle, they became crypto people too. I could be totally wrong about this, but this makes me a little bit excited about how, if they're covering the bear market this way, this makes me a little excited about how they're going to cover the next bull market when things turn for the better. What is their coverage going to look like then? I have a feeling it's going to be a lot better than the coverage we got in the last bull market. Even to this day, this is something we've been talking about for a long, long time, but even to this day, I am still struck by the magnitude of the use case for connecting the unconnected. Here we see, and by the way, I have no idea whether any particular Cardano project is going to be successful. I have no idea. I don't think anybody really knows. But This does seem to be a use case where there is a gigantic amount of work to be done. Here's a post from World Mobile. Sub-Saharan African countries with the lowest percentage of active internet connections, percentage of population. It goes from the most connected, the most unconnected, Eritrea at 1.6% connection, to Togo, the most connected, at least on this list, at 5.5% connection. That means even with the most connected on this list, Togo, you've got 94.5% of the people still unconnected. Looks like this is coming from a source called International Telecommunications Union as of 2023. And certainly these numbers do seem believable to me. Nothing about this seems ridiculous. But man, if you're going to pick a use case where there's some work to be done, I think World Mobile did a good job. They definitely picked a use case where there's a lot of work to be done, and the people who they would be connecting, I think those people would have they would have a lot of demand. If you could take somebody in one of these countries who has never had connectivity before and give it to them, I think they're going to be pretty pleased to finally be connected with the rest of the world economy. There's controversy in Cardano. I know our Cardano ecosystem is no stranger to controversy, but guess what? That's just crypto. Crypto is full of controversy because people are passionate about crypto and they usually have some money riding on whatever they're passionate about in crypto. So this combination of pecuniary interest and emotions. So it can get controversial. There can be drama. And the latest drama is about this platform called Dex Hunter. And this all has to do with front running and the sandwiching of transactions. And we've talked about this a million times in the context of how this works on Ethereum and how it was going to eventually sort of creep into Cardano and works differently in Cardano, but we definitely have some front running of transactions going on. And we've talked about this mostly, I think, in Cardano. We've talked about this a lot in the context of DEX batchers front running transactions. And there are going to be a million other ways people try to front run transactions in Cardano. This latest drama, you're going to see a lot of discussion of node mempools and how you can monitor those mempools and then front run transactions in the mempool of your node. And so obviously, a lot of people are going to try to figure out ways to get people to use their nodes so they can then front run those transactions. I'm not commenting on this particular controversy with this platform. I'm just saying that's going to be a fact of life in any kind of crypto context. If you've got a blockchain and it has mempools and people can monitor those mempools and, then front run transactions that they're monitoring, that's going to happen. People are going to do that because there's money to be made. Here's what I think. Here's the fundamental thing that seems to ring true across blockchain ecosystems. If you are not running some kind of a full node wallet where you can sort of directly, we're going to use some shorthand here and some intellectual shortcuts, but basically, if you can't directly commit your transactions to the blockchain, it's not exactly how it works because there's propagation and things like that. But with a full node wallet, you can, again, shorthand, directly commit your transaction to the blockchain. If you're not using a full node wallet, you're doing something else. You're using somebody else's node, and they're going to have a mempool, and they're going to be monitoring that mempool, and they could front run your transaction. Those are just the facts of life. There's a reason why IOHK's first wallet for the Cardano ecosystem was dataless. It's big and bulky and slow, compared to a light wallet. And the reason that is, it's not because IOG wanted things to be bulky and slow. It's because they wanted people to have that full node access directly to the blockchain. They wanted to be able to avoid the whole middleman problem. This is basically a middleman problem. This whole controversy that's going to come up over and over again in every single blockchain ecosystem. I'm sure there's some blockchain, that's figured out some way to be more resistant to this out there. I'm sure it's a trade-off, always trade-offs. You could trade off, you could maybe mitigate this problem somehow and create other problems for yourself. But in most blockchains, there's going to be some form of this front-running problem. As long as there are, non-full node wallets, which there almost always will be in crypto, you're going to have this problem. So the thing to know, I think, is that if you're not running a full node wallet, you are using somebody else's node. And they are, I mean, there's exceptions. You could use a light wallet and sort of connect it with Daedalus. People have certainly done this with, I think probably Nami most notably, and Daedalus. But and then you would be using a light wallet and also using your own node. But that's a technicality. Basically, if you're not using a full node wallet, you're introducing trust. You're trusting someone else not to monitor that mempool and front run your transactions. If you see these platforms where there seems to be no incentive for the team behind the platform to be providing the platform, you might want to think about whether or not they're providing that platform because they want you to use their node because they want to monitor those mempools and front run your transactions. These are just facts of life in crypto, and Cardano's got to the point where we too have to address this. Maybe we don't even have to address it. We just have to acknowledge that it exists. And actually, it's existed for a long time. We acknowledged it the first time, what was it, a year ago, 2 years ago? I can't remember this point, but a long time ago. It's going to continue to be the case. If you're not using a full node wallet, you're trusting somebody not to front run your transactions. There are exceptions, maybe exceptions to that. Maybe there's some cases where people put in case safeguards, they're developing safeguards, something like that. But largely, if you introduce trust, you have to accept that there might be people out there who abuse that trust. I hope nobody is out there abusing your trust. I hope you had a great weekend and you're looking forward to a great week. And I'll talk to you soon.